I'm going to tell you a story that still gets my heart racing every time I think about it. It started with a backpack. Not just any backpack, but the one my daughter had spent months protecting, filled with something that meant the world to her. And what happened to it changed everything for our family. We were flying out to Atlanta. My daughter, Layla, had just won this big junior science competition with a solar energy prototype she built entirely on her own cut glass panels, microcircuits, the whole 9 yards. She's 12. Can you believe that? 12. I mean, I was still burning grilled cheese at that age. Anyway, because she'd won the grand prize, the organizers upgraded us to first class. It was supposed to be a celebration, one of those rare moments where all the late nights and sacrificed weekends actually felt worth it. We were buzzing, hearts light. Layla kept touching her backpack, like she was making sure it was still real. And I remember looking at her and thinking maybe, just maybe, this world would start to see her for the brilliant little light she is. Then, Brittany happened. Flight attendant. Blonde bun tight enough to snap steel, smile faker than airport sushi. We hadn't even sat down in seats 3A and 3B before she clocked us, me, a black mom in a navy suit, and my little girl with her Galaxy backpack, and she just froze. No welcome aboard. No smile, just that squint. You know the one. Are you sure you're in the right section? She asked, eyes scanning us like we'd broken into a penthouse. I smiled tight, polite. Showed her our tickets. Yup, right here. 3A, 3B. She looked at the tickets like they were written in Martian and muttered, well, that's unusual. Didn't say why it was unusual. Didn't have to. I've seen that face before. 100 times. Layla was already tucking her bag gently under the seat in front. She was being so careful, God. That bag was her whole world. But Brittany came back with, you'll need to store that in the overhead bin. Layla looked up and said, it's really fragile, ma'am. My project. It's policy. Brittany snapped, like she'd been waiting to shut us down all morning. I tried to explain it'd been allowed to keep it under the seat on the previous flight. Brittany cut me off mid-sentence. That was their flight. This is mine. And then before we could stop her, she just grabbed the bag. Didn't wait. Didn't listen. She yanked it, turned on her heel, and headed down the aisle like it was trash pickup day. I remember Layla whispering, please be careful, but it was like yelling at the wind. I watched her wedge that bag into an overhead bin crammed full of Louis Vuitton cases, and then, like it was nothing, she kicked it with her foot. Hard. The sound of breaking glass. It was faint, but unmistakable. I saw Layla's face twist in real time like something inside her snapped. She shot up and tried to rush forward, but Brittany barked, sit down now. We're preparing for departure. Layla started to cry. Actual tears. My project, I think it broke. If it's broken, then it wasn't packed properly, Brittany muttered. Now buckle up. Other passengers looked away. You know how people are, they know it's wrong, but they don't want to get involved. I sat there holding my baby girl, whispering that it'd be okay, even though I knew it probably wasn't. And for the next 2 hours, we were invisible. Brittany walked past us again and again, drinks for the guy in 1A, blankets for the lady across the aisle, but for us? Nothing. She didn't even respond when I rang the call button. I felt so powerless. And I hated that Layla had to see me that way. When we landed, she raced to that overhead bin and opened the backpack. I didn't even have to ask. I could see it in her eyes. It was ruined. The glass panels were shattered. Wires mangled. Months of her brilliance stomped out by one careless, nasty foot. I marched straight to Brittany. She was smiling at passengers like she hadn't just crushed a kid's dream. I told her I wanted her supervisor. She said I could file a complaint at the terminal. No apology. No remorse. Just standard procedure. I saw red, and I made a phone call I hadn't made in years. I called Layla's father. Now listen, Mark isn't just some guy. He's not just a father. He's the founder of Sentinel Dynamics, a clean tech empire. He's got the kind of money that makes airports nervous and CEOs stammer. And he's not a man who forgets where he came from either. He picked up on the first ring. When I told him what happened, he went quiet. And I know that silence. That's the silence before a storm. He said, "Put Layla on." And she told him between sniffles that her project was broken. That a woman who didn't even look her in the eye had kicked it, like it was nothing. And I swear, his voice softened and hardened at the same time. He said, "You're never going to be treated like that again. Not if I can help it." For hours later, he canceled a billion-dollar meeting in Singapore. By the time his jet touched down in New York, he had already assembled a corporate intel team, dug into Washington Airlines finances, and discovered a gold mine of skeletons, racial complaints buried, safety records falsified, executives shielding bad behavior with nepotism and arrogance. And then he did something nobody saw coming. He bought their debt, piece by piece, quietly, strategically. By the end of week 2, he controlled 40% of their outstanding liabilities. By week 3, their major corporate contracts were fleeing to Sentinel's new logistics platform. By week 4, whistleblowers were flooding in passengers, employees, maintenance workers. All of them said the same thing. This wasn't a one-off. This was how Washington Airlines worked. Then came the final straw boardroom showdown at the Capitol Grill. Mark sat across from Richard Langston, CEO of Washington Airlines, a man who'd brushed off years of racism with a polished grin and a Harvard tie. Mark didn't bring lawyers. He brought me. Langston scoffed when he saw me. Said, "Didn't realize this was a family dinner." Mark said, "It is. You made it personal." Langston raged, blustered, called our complaints emotional exaggerations, said, "Your daughter got upset over a bag. That's not reason to destroy a company." And then he said the line that sealed his fate. "Maybe if you people stopped looking for racism, you wouldn't find so much of it." The room went still. Mark didn't yell. He didn't flinch. He slid a folder across the table detailing their debt structure, the lawsuits, the emails. And then he said, "I don't need your shares, Richard. I own your future. You can resign today and leave quietly, or tomorrow. I'll make every one of your sins public record." Langston looked around. No one stood with him. Even his partner, Reynolds, was already backing away, sensing the end. He resigned the next day. 3 weeks later, Sentinel Dynamics announced full ownership of Washington Airlines. New leadership, new training, new culture. Brittany? Gone. And Layla? She rebuilt her project, made it better, sleeker, stronger. And at her next competition, she stood on that stage, gold medal around her neck, not just as a brilliant young inventor, but as a girl who refused to be stepped on, and as the daughter of parents who moved heaven and earth to make sure she never would be again. Now I know not everyone has a billionaire in their corner, but here's the truth: we all have a voice. And sometimes, the smallest voice like my daughter's can shake the walls of systems built to ignore us. So I'll ask you this. If someone broke your child's spirit with a single cruel act, would you sit quietly? Or would you build something bigger? Tell me in the comments, was Mark right to go that far? Or did he let his power go to his head? Drop a 1 if you believe what he did was justice. Drop a 2 if you think he crossed a line. And if you've ever been in Layla's shoes or mine, share your story. Someone out there needs to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around. This was just one story. But trust me, there are plenty more where that came from.